Thank you. Thank you. So, I'm Greg. Just a quick show of hands. You guys, raise your hand if you do presentations. Okay. Cool. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I don't have a mic yet, but you probably can hear me. So, raise your hand if you think that most presentations you see suck. Good. A couple of them. Good. So, take out your phones. I noticed a lot of you have phones already. Are we presenting here? Yeah. Okay. See if this technology works. Right. So if you can take out your phones and go to slido.com and then enter in the code SSC. I know most of you have your phones out. This is the way we can anonymously answer questions, ask questions, upvote other people's questions, and interact. So this can be more of a conversation than a transmission of information. And we're going to talk today about why that's the future. The future of presentations is not about transmitting information. But we're going to talk about that's the reason why most presentations just generally suck. So should I put on this microphone?
If you could, they're recordings, that'd be make it easier. Thank you.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Ground control to Major Tom. All right. So, looks like most people regularly lie to their mother. Let's see. Is that the live poll? Oh, we got shampoo stealers here too. So I'm using this technology called Slido, which is a really great way when you're having a conversation with a large group of people to connect with everyone. And if you notice on your phone as well, there's a questions tab, so you can see other people's questions with large groups, upvote them and downvote them. Now, why is that important? I just saw Elon Musk have a conversation or a presentation about 40 minutes long, and when it got to the question period, someone got the mic and said, tell me about how we're going to have bathrooms on Mars. And it was just awful that, a presentation like that was hijacked by a bad question. So this is a really great technology to make sure that you use the zeitgeist, the intelligence of the room to elevate what's most important. So let's just put another question up in here. So who's here? You can answer this question. Are you from an agency, a big company, small company? I know we had a show of hands here earlier. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to show some slides from there because there's some pieces I want to share with you. But we're going to be doing a lot of this. So we've got a couple innocent bystanders here, folks from big companies, small companies. All right, so question here. What is the purpose of your presentation? We talked about selling versus, what is selling about? It's really asking questions, not telling. So if you were to say, what is the purpose? What is the reason why you're presenting? I know that some of you said you present. So far, is it about transmitting information? 3 people have voted there. Create a trusted relationship, deliver a performance. So the presentation that I'm doing now is not a TED Talk. I'm not here to deliver a performance. It's really to have a conversation with you about presentations. Most of you are with businesses that have presentations that need to be much more interactive. So I believe that the purpose of presentations now and in the future, you go to Facebook Live, people are presenting there, very much an interaction with their audience. The future of presentations are about a conversation. But how do you do that? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So what makes a great presenter? Is it their charisma? Is it their knowledge, their body language, connection with the audience? So this is a belief I have that I help my clients with, is that you don't have to be like a great public speaker. You don't have to be charming. You don't have to be, while you could always work on your public speaking skills and always get better at that, most of us, including myself, aren't going to be magical, aren't going to be great. So the way to deliver great presentations is to design structured conversations. And we're going to talk about how to do that. So connection with the audience is absolutely the number one. So if I move here and go to show presentation, does that work? Yes. That is me when I was 13. My mother took this picture. And I remember, while this was a cool moment in my life, it was really the most awful moment in my life because there was a kid in the second row who was pointing out all the time how I was doing my tricks, how there was a hole in the ring, how I pull the thing out of the hat, and that was a trick magic wand. And it was kind of devastating. I ran out of the room crying because I was basically exposed as a fraud. And I think that moment in my life taught me that it's not about doing performances. It's about connecting with people and getting people involved with whatever presentation I'm doing. All right, so we talked about what the purpose is of your presentation. I just took this picture in a previous presentation, and I wanted to point out how many, during a presentation, how everyone's got their phone out. And this is not a bad thing. This is how we are working today in presentations with groups. You have everyone has their phone out. So instead of sort of fighting that, say everyone please put down their phones, we're not really doing that right now. This is part of how we communicate and tap that. Speaking of which, I'm going to put out another poll here. What is the most exciting way to learn information? Let's put this poll up. What is the most exciting way to learn information? I know what I think it is, but I'm curious what you think the most exciting way is to learn information. So while you can say, well, is this really a conversation? It's a conversation between one and many, but it's happening right now. And here, let's put up another question here. In one word, what's the quality of a great presentation? So here, you can actually type in a word, and it's going to generate a word cloud, which is a very cool piece of this technology. So in one word, what's the quality of a great presentation? Results, content. So a word will be twice as large if two people in the room use that same word. And this is what I mean about tapping the wisdom of a group. This is an extremely powerful thing. I presented like this, engaging, awesome, with a room of like 200 people. It's amazing. It's quiet, super quiet in the room, yet you see knowledge, information, and ideas just happen. So cool. This was not possible just even 5 years ago. All right, so if I move now to show presentation, I'm going to share a couple more slides. So we talked about this, and you've seen the statistics. In fact, Brian had mentioned these statistics earlier. I'm not going to read them. You know about the average buyer is already halfway through their decision process. You've heard this from another speaker. This is absolutely true. Simon Sinek, absolutely awesome. Brian earlier talked about how it's so important to find out why we do what we do, and that's what his book is, Start With Why. And this is the key shift, is that information that is in everyone's hands right now is the big shift. Information is not power anymore. When you're selling, you're presenting, people aren't there to get information. They can find out their own information. This is a photo I took of a presentation, and it was just god-awful. And this is just typical of the presentations that I see. People are trapped in a room, and I hope nobody here feels trapped, but people are trapped in a room. The only reason why you're not leaving is because you don't want to be rude. And that's an awful way to keep people in a room. So it's like, I know this already, why am I here? It's duh. So it's not about information presentations, okay? It's about creating an experience. Kevin Kelly, anyone here read his book, The 12 Inevitable Forces? They're going to shape the next 30 years. Fantastic book, by the way. So he talks about how answers are just cheap in the future. They're all here. What's important is the question. This is a picture I found on the internet of North Korea. And those folks don't look too happy. But yes, one-way presentation is kind of dead. So this was a great presentation I went to in the UK, and David McQueen, fantastic presenter. He had everybody in the room engaged. And that's a picture that I took in the back of the room. And it was just phenomenal. And the way he did this is just old school. He wasn't using Slido. He was just asking people for a show of hands constantly, getting people engaged. A great way to do a presentation with a large group. However, when you're doing a presentation with 3 or 4 executives, you can just go around the room and say, what would you like to get out of this? Speaking of which, why don't we pause right now? And I'm not sure if everyone sort of knows each other, even sitting next to a table, like next to each other. But why don't we take 1 minute and introduce yourself to the person sitting next to you, and just say one thing that you're hoping to get out of this day. You came to this event. There's got to be one thing that you're hoping to get out of this day. So if you can do that now, once you're done, if you can switch. So that's 2 minutes. Go. Hey, how's it going? Greg. Nice to meet you. Where are you from? You do presentations to clients and stuff? So what are you hoping to get out of this? All right, if you haven't switched, why don't we switch? All right. Thank you. So who would like to just say what, or introduce or say what they heard the person they just met wants to get out of this day? They came here. Who would like to just say, I heard, just met this person, they said they wanted to get this? Who would like to? Anyone? Okay. A little shy group. I'm not asking you to speak about yourself, but about the person you talked to. Maybe you forgot. Anyone?
I can.
Okay.
So I just met Sheila here, and she's interested in getting a new client while she's here. So she does a lot of corporate speaking and coaching and sales training and stuff.
Great. Good.
And I use the box.
Thank you. All right, so what do you think about this Venn diagram here? Yes, no, maybe. So you got presenter. In this case, it would be me. You have the topic, which is about presentations. You have audience interest, which is why you're here, what you want to get out of this. That is the zone. It's hard to stay there. But who would agree, just a show of hands, that that is the spot that is the most important place to be when you're presenting to clients, to prospects? Show of hands? Okay. Anyone disagree, think that, well, you know what, in our business it's different? I'd love to hear that, because there may be difference. Okay, cool. So what I think is what we help our clients with. So there it is. Your reality is your presentation is already a conversation, and there's a picture of another room where everyone's on their phones. It's important to recognize that. So now I'm going to hop over to the show questions. So on your phones, there's one question that's there. Isn't it distracting when people are using the cell phones during presentations? Feel free to type in questions there if you don't want to raise your hand if you're a bit shy. That's fine too. So the good news is that you don't need to be an extrovert to be a great presenter in this new world, and you don't have to practice and rehearse. You just have to create. The bad news is you have to have good design and you have to use some technology. And I've got a question here because I think I'm a little bit introverted. I mean, my hands are shaking a little bit. I'm a little nervous right now, and that means I'm sort of, introverted person. I'm not comfortable getting up in front of a group. But if you're kind of like me, what's sort of the secret for an introverted person to present? And so I'm going to put this question up here. How should an introverted person be a great presenter? Should they rehearse every line? You see some very great introverted TED Talk speakers, and they rehearse every line. I'm not talking about that kind of presentation. That's more of a performance. More B2B kind of presentations are more structured conversations. So I believe that, yes, the people in the room who are answering this one, start by taking questions is a great way for an introverted presenter to just talk about what they know in their own way, totally like in your own like comfort zone. And yeah, so to that point, there's a question I have here. What is your biggest fear about presenting? So is it about being found out as an imposter syndrome? Is it about can't control the outcome? What do you think? Won't go as planned. I won't know the answer and I'll look like a fool. Yeah, all those things. All right. I took this picture in London, and I loved the way these people looked. And I think the point when I saw this photo that I took, I realized that when you're presenting or when you're watching a presenter, it's not about being somebody else or using some cool communication skills trick that you've learned. It's totally about being comfortable in your own space, in your own place. And the way to that zone is through, I'm convinced because I help my clients with this, is through designing a structured conversation so that you're comfortable just starting with questions and going anywhere that they want to go. For example, I'll show you some examples of what that looks like. Yeah, structured conversation. So that's a term that I've come up with. I don't know what you guys think of it. But I think that structured conversation is the future of a presentation. And so speaking about a structured conversation, here is a winning structure that we create every day. And it's essentially a think of a starfish. It's a 5-pointed or a hand, 5-piece structure. Start with a question, get some insight. What are you trying to accomplish is a great question to ask people. To start out your presentation, what would you like to focus on? You can say, well, there are 3 pieces that I want to share with you today. What's most important to you? And start there. Prove credibility is probably the first thing you need to do. It gives you the right to tell them some things. That's, by the way, something that I didn't do in this presentation. I didn't really tell you who I am or what I do, but whatever. Explain the problem. This helps you identify and connect with your customers. Talk about the solution is the 4th piece, where the solution, by the way, is their solution, not your solution. I think too many salespeople say, have we got the solution for you? Take a look at our solution. But I've learned that if it's not my problem to solve, then it's not my solution. I don't know how you feel about that. But if a customer has a problem that they're trying to solve, they're buying a solution which is ultimately theirs. Okay, that's my sales belief. Also, to end with a question about, well, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts? Is so critical. So here's a 5-pointed structure that we help our clients design structured conversations around. Sometimes it's 3, 5. For some reason, it's odd numbers. I don't know why it's odd, not even. Like, it's not 2 points or 4 or 6. And if you know the answer to that question, I'd be interested to know the answer to why things seem to fall into odd numbers. I have to study some numerology. So here are some extra tips, right? Visual is more memorable. So here we're using PowerPoint, which I don't like. I like Prezi much better. I couldn't really use Prezi in this situation because of the way the technology that was being used here. Prezi is a cloud-based presentation platform that uses mind mapping and zooming instead of slide by slide, and it lends itself better to conversational presentations. So this is pretty cool. Obviously, we all should know this, but too many of us have presentations with bullet points. That's why most presentations suck. Love using Prezi because it's very visual and it's very there are 3 topics, and you're sort of like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, moving around information and mind mapping information and sharing information in a visual spatial way, which, by the way, is how we remember things. Like if I said right now, think of what's inside your kitchen. Okay? You can picture 101 things in your kitchen, from your microwave right now where the tea kettle is, to where your tea and your refrigerator, what's in your refrigerator. You can picture all of this in your mind because we as humans remember things spatially, not in bullet points. That's why I love Prezi, is the act of creating a Prezi, which is a mind map of your ideas, helps you as a presenter understand, remember the information so you can present it better. It also allows your audience to remember and retain the information. So this before and after picture of a closet is pretty much what I do in my job, is I help people organize what it is that they do, what it is they're talking about. And that's pretty much, I'm a closet cleaner. So here's some pictures of some Prezis that we've done, and you can see none of them look like PowerPoint because they're all sort of circles and zones that you're zooming into. These are overviews. So each one of these are structured conversations, typically 3, 5. Oh, there's a 6th one. That's an even number. Yeah, pretty much. Here's also a Prezi where what you're doing is you're zooming into. So, okay, we got 3 things to talking about here. Choosing the right speakers, setting your speakers up for success, and I can't read that 3rd one, but we're going to be talking about this today and zooming into each of those, like a trip to New York to Chicago, and we're going to be zooming into different places along the way. Just to show of hands here, who uses Prezi? Who has used Prezi before in presentations? Nobody. Wow. Who here has heard of Prezi before? Wow. Cool. So Slido is what I'm using here for polling technology. And so I'm going to put up a poll right now, and then when selling, what works better? We heard this before by other presenters. Clearly you can vote. Is it telling, broadcasting, or is it asking? When you're selling, what works better? Absolutely. I believe that. Okay. And so here is an example of a Prezi where we're zooming into a building, and then boom, you go into that building, you're showing more information. Here's a presentation from UCSF, and it's the same kind of design. Here's a Biorad presentation where they have lots of different things they want to talk about, and you're all zooming into those different spaces. More examples. So this is a PowerPoint deck from Airbnb. This is what they use to get their gazillion dollars of investment. And I like this because it shows just better design. And design is really key. Simplifying text down to images is so important. This is also something that we help our clients do. Another Prezi, which you're zooming into different buildings as you're taking a journey through Main Street. And that's about it. Questions? Comments? I'm going to go to show questions here to see if there are any. No, there isn't. Well, thank you very much.